Up next in the broadcast, after apparent moves by Pyongyang to link family reunion talks with resuming an inter-Korean tour program, Seoul takes a cautious stance and says the two are separate issues. South Korea and the United States begin their annual joint defense drills. However, this year, North Korea has thus far refrained from condemning the exercise. Egypt's military says we are all welcome to live together as long as it's done peacefully. This weekend's call for calm comes after last week's violence killed close to 900 people. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News. It's Monday, August 19th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin with the sudden stream of offers for talks between the two Koreas. While North Korea has accepted Seoul's proposal for dialogue on resuming family reunions, the two sides have yet to decide on the location.
The South also has not responded to the North's offer for negotiations on reopening the shuttered Mount Kumgang resort to South Korean tourists. Hwang Sung-hee has the details on the upcoming dialogue.
South Korea said Monday that talks on resuming reunions for separated families and on reopening the Mount Kumgang resort to South Korean tourists will be dealt with as two separate issues.
The South Korean government will deliver our stance on the issue to the public after a thorough review of the overall situation.
On Sunday, North Korea proposed to hold fresh talks this Thursday on resuming South Korean tours to the Mount Kumgang resort, offering to discuss Seoul's concerns like ensuring personal safety and protecting South Korean properties. The resort has been closed to South Koreans since 2008 after a tourist from the South was fatally shot by a North Korean guard. And while the North accepted Seoul's offer for Red Cross talks on resuming reunions for families separated during the Korean War on Friday, the two are engaged in a tug-of-war on the venue of the meeting. Pyongyang has proposed to meet at the Mount Kumgang resort, while Seoul has reiterated that the tourist village of Panmunjom is the most ideal site due to the convenience of its location. And as part of efforts to reopen the jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex, North Korea sent on Monday evening its draft proposal for the formation of a joint committee that will oversee the management of the factory zone. Seoul said it will send its own draft proposal sometime this week after reviewing the document it received from the North. Meanwhile, a South Korean communications and power inspection team made its second trip to Kaesong on Monday to check up on the facilities at the complex, which have been closed for more than 4 months. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And while the two Koreas are making efforts to revive dialogue, South Korea and the United States have started their joint training exercise, the Ulchi Freedom Guardian.
But unlike in the past, North Korea has so far refrained from condemning the drills. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports on Pyongyang's reserved tongue.
South Korea and the U.S. have kicked off on Monday their annual 12-day joint training exercise. The computer simulation-aided Joint Ulchi Freedom Guardian drill mobilizes roughly 50,000 Koreans and 30,000 U.S. troops. The main purpose of the exercise is to maintain security on the Korean peninsula, while upholding joint defense capabilities between the two allies. In this year's exercise, observers from the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission, which ensures the implementation of the Korean War Armistice Agreement, along with 7 countries in the United Nations Command, will monitor the drills. Along with this military exercise, Seoul has launched its annual 4-day local emergency drill to measure the government's readiness for dealing with terror situations and military threats from the North. Unlike other years in which North Korea has lashed out against the joint exercises, North Korea has so far kept mum on the issue, with experts saying it is due to recent progress on the inter-Korean relations. Pyongyang had conventionally condemned the joint training drills, claiming they are a prelude to war, disregarding Seoul and Washington's argument that they are for defense purposes only. The two Koreas remain technically at war after the Korean War ended with the Armistice Agreement. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The difficulty of finding a place to live at an affordable price doesn't show any sign of easing up here in the nation, especially for renters.
In response, President Park Geun-hye renewed her commitment to tackling skyrocketing rental prices and pledged to do what she can to help solve the persistent problem. Our presidential office correspondent, Jin-ju, reports.
Crazy jeonse prices. This is how Koreans these days are describing Korea's unique housing system of lump sum rental deposits. The country's unstable housing market has even forced people with enough money to buy their own homes outright to turn to long-term leases, pushing up the jeonse prices even higher. The year-on-year increase in jeonse prices of apartments in the Seoul metropolitan area has doubled since last year to 4.8% this year. With more of a burden on the nation's middle class, commercial banks in Korea have announced plans to raise the limit for jeonse loans in the coming days. However, President Park says the measures aren't enough and will not fundamentally solve the problem. During a cabinet meeting Monday morning, President Park ordered her cabinet members to work together with political parties to come up with regulations that could allow both lessors and lessees to make reasonable and predictable contracts. She vowed to put top priority on the matter during the latter half of the year. The president also promised to focus on revitalizing the economy and creating more jobs. In particular, she called on the National Assembly to quickly pass the revised Foreigner Investment Promotion Bill, which would ease regulations on foreign companies. She pointed out that more than $1.8 billion in foreign investment has been put on hold due to the delay in the passage of the bill, and stressed that it would be a huge loss for the country should the foreign companies scrap their investment plans in Korea and take them to other countries instead. Jin-ju, Arirang News.
A group of current and former National Intelligence Service agents and police officers took the witness stand on Monday over allegations that the nation's spy agency meddled in last year's presidential election.
Our Kim Yeon-ji reports from the National Assembly with the latest on the ongoing parliamentary probe.
At Monday's hearing involving NIS agents, a giant screen wall was set up so that their faces could not be seen. Behind the wall were 2 active and 2 inactive agents. A female NIS agent who stands accused of posting negative online comments about opposition presidential candidates before the December election was among them. The agent said she was only fulfilling her duties as an agent.
I never received orders to meddle in the presidential election. I only did my duties to respond to North Korea's propaganda online.
But the agent refused to answer many of the questions posed, saying she didn't want to incriminate herself in the event she's put on trial at a later date. Kwon Eun-hee, a police officer who led the investigation into the spy agency scandal at Seoul's Suseol police station, said she received a phone call from former Seoul Metropolitan Police Chief Kim Yong-pan on December 16th. Kwon said that Kim told her not to file a request for a warrant to search the apartment from where the NIS agent was found to have posted sensitive political comments.
What Kim Yong-pan did was unfair because it tapered with our investigation at Suseol Station.
Kwon said she had asked the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency to analyze all files saved in the female NIS agent's computer, including 100 keywords. But she said the police agency cut that number down to just 4 and then released the results of the investigation at 11 p.m. on December 16th, just 3 days before the election. Other high-ranking NIS agents at the hearing said there may be posted comments online that others may have judged as being inappropriate or problematic, but they claim they only posted them to effectively counter North Korean propaganda in cyberspace. Kim Yeon-ji, Arirang News.
If you feel sluggish after coming back from your summer vacation, the cause may not just be your wish to go back. Sleep disorders, fatigue, and even indigestion may stem from the disruption of your biological clock.
To tell us more about how our hormonal system works and what we can do to minimize post-vacation withdrawal or low biorhythms, we bring in Dr. Kim Eun-gi, professor of biological engineering at Inha University in the studio. Welcome to the program.
Okay, good to hear.
Well, Professor, apparently we don't have just one biological clock, but many clocks in a network in our body. How does this whole system work?
Actually, the biological clock is located in the brain, in the middle brain, just behind your eyes, and is connected to the eye. That means biological clock responds to sunlight. At noon, for example, the intensity of the sunlight is the maximum, and the biological clock understands that this is noon. Then start 24-hour cycle. During 24-hour cycle, it produces a lot of the molecule which controls the body. Melatonin, for example, which is a sleep-induced hormone, is produced from the brain by the signs of the biological clock. Interestingly, once the biological clock is set up by the daily exposure to sun, it goes on and on without sunlight. That means if you are isolated in the dark cave, still you can wake up in the morning without any clock.
And we've all heard people complain that they wish they could be a morning person or they are a night person. Do we all have different clocks in our body, and can we change it to adapt to our personal life, lifestyle?
Okay. In the brain, there are a lot of genes related to biological clock. And recently, we found one gene which controls the type of the individual biorhythm. For example, the morning favoring morning clock or night favoring night hour person. The difference comes from the time of duration, from the production of the signal molecule by the brain to reach and to action, for example, wake up signal. So 50% of us belongs to the morning clock or night hour, and 50% is in the middle of between those two extremes. Whether you are morning clock or night owl is determined by the genetics in your body. But you can change by your effort between those two. If you are two extremes, it's more difficult, but most of us are in the middle, so it can change more easily if you are in the middle range.
So what happens when our biological clocks don't function properly, or if we're not getting the right signals through the sunlight? How serious can these conditions get?
Okay, so the biological clock produces signal molecule and send that signal to your organ in the body. So depending on that signal, your organ works properly. But therefore, it's the normal cycle of the production and the function is disturbed by some other reason, then your organ will not function properly. So if that disturbance is very short or temporary, like a jet lag, if you travel to New York, then you can overcome, in 1 week, you can overcome that kind of disturbance. But if that disturbance is permanent or continuous or so long, then it will definitely affect your body. A recent study showed that the Alzheimer or Parkinson's disease is directly related to the disturbance in the biological clock.
Right. So before we let you go, Professor, can you give our viewers some tips to avoid post-vacation syndrome or try to retrieve in a normal physical condition?
Okay, so if you travel to New York, for example, there is no other way to avoid jet lag as a human being. The best way to overcome the jet lag is to work in the daytime around noon, for example, under the strong sun. Then the sunlight through the eye give a signal to the brain, this is noon here. Then the brain shifts their cycle to the new or local time. So the best way is to work in the daytime. The other way is to take the melatonin, a sleep-inducing hormone, for the temporary short times jet lag like the sun.
All right. Well, thanks so much for the tips. I guess the important thing is to look at this, be in the sunlight at noon every day.
That's Mother Nature.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Professor.
Okay, thank you.
Before your day ends and another begins, get the latest news live from Seoul.
Residents whose features
restrictions is on the rise.
closing ceremony.
Expert analysis from Asia's heartbeat.
The legislature circumstances.
With a viewpoint only Korea's global network can provide.
The United States, the latest report.
Unrivaled access from a team always on standby.
Came on the news are trying to cover up the South's true intentions.
Turning now to the ongoing crisis in Egypt. After last week's carnage, clashes between security forces and protesters continued on Monday. Our Song Ji-sun has the latest on Egypt's unrest, which has left more than 24 dead.
The unrest on Monday resulted in casualties on both sides of the conflict. Egypt's state-run Nile TV reported Monday that armed militants killed at least 25 Egyptian soldiers execution style in the northern city of Rafah. The suspected militants ambushed 2 minibuses carrying off-duty policemen. The incident is the latest in a series in recent days. On Sunday, police fired tear gas to free a prison guard from riding detainees. Authorities say some 600 Muslim Brotherhood detainees being transported in a truck convoy attempted to break out and held an officer hostage. Rioters say 36 were killed in the ensuing assault. The Brotherhood also canceled a planned march Sunday in Heliopolis, a suburb of Cairo, due to concerns of snipers. In the midst of all the violence, the nation's military chief, General Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, vowed on state TV Sunday that the military would stand firm in the face of the rising violence, but also called for the inclusion of Islamists in the post-Morsi political process. The army enforced a dawn-to-dusk curfew in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, on Sunday, with soldiers standing by in armored vehicles and manned checkpoints. More than 850 people have been killed in Egypt since security forces forcibly broke up 2 pro-Morsi protest camps in Cairo last Wednesday. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Staying with Egypt, in the meantime, the international community, the U.S. in particular, is keeping a close eye on the bloodshed. Park Ji-won has the details on how the recent events may shape the international response.
In the U.S., lawmakers continue to debate whether the U.S. should carry on sending hundreds of millions of dollars worth of military and economic aid to Egypt. Out of the $1.5 billion sent to Cairo each year, $1.3 billion goes to the military. Egypt has been a recipient of U.S. bilateral aid since 1979 when it signed a peace treaty with Israel.
Now, with the recent violent crackdown, I do not see how we can continue aid. I believe it must be suspended because, unfortunately, I think the military has gotten the impression that whatever they do, we will continue our aid. So I do support suspending aid at this time.
Other lawmakers say the U.S. should continue its aid to Egypt, considering its long-standing bilateral relations with the North African country and its national security interests in the region.
One of the obvious facts of a transition from an authoritarian government to a democracy, it takes a long time and it's not a straight line. And so we have to have a policy that expresses our outrage, really, at the military, but also gives the president the tools to, we hope, engage them.
U.S. President Obama criticized Egypt's military-backed interim government strongly last week following the military's recent crackdown on pro-Morsi supporters. He also called off a joint military exercise scheduled for later this year, but the White House has yet to announce whether or not it will continue its bilateral aid to Egypt. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The good news for the 1,000 or so South Korean passengers who were left stranded in the Philippines after authorities there grounded all flights by budget carrier Zest Air. They should all be back on Korean soil by this time tomorrow. South Korean and Philippine chartered special planes to fly about half of them back on Monday, and all the remaining people are expected to return to Korea by Tuesday. All Zest Air flights were grounded on Friday due to safety concerns. And taking you now to southern Japan, where a volcano erupted on Sunday, shooting up a giant plume of smoke into the air. Large amounts of volcanic ash fell in the region, causing delays in public transport and forcing people to take cover. Kim In-ji reports.
An ash cloud loomed over southern Japan after Mount Sakurajima erupted on Sunday afternoon, blasting an ash plume of thousands of meters into the air and casting a dark spell over the region. The 1,117-meter or 3,665 feet volcano near Kagoshima City began to erupt around 4:30 p.m. local time. Volcanic ash swept the northern and central parts of the city, causing a delay in train services and forcing drivers to use their headlights in broad daylight. Residents of Kagoshima and tourists held handkerchiefs to their mouths and wore masks for protection, while others shielded themselves with umbrellas. No injuries or deaths have been reported. The plume of smoke reached a spectacular height of 5,000 meters, the highest record since data was compiled in 1955. The Japanese Meteorological Observatory also reported a pyroclastic flow, a current of gas and rock discovered roughly 1 kilometer southeast down the slope of the volcano. Sunday's eruption of Mount Sakurajima was the 500th this year, which is about 950 kilometers southwest of Tokyo. Kim In-ji, Arirang News.
The Pro-Amateur Basketball Championships entered a round of 8 today in Seoul.
And we have Stephen Che in the Sports Center to tell us how the amateurs are holding up against the pros. Stephen.
Hey guys, the pro-amateur events may only be an exhibition, but the players are definitely taking it seriously with their pride on the line. And just like last year, the amateur teams are making a stand. In the round of 8 today, the SK Knights defeated fellow pro team, the ET Land Elephants, 66-54, thanks to a double-double by SK's Kim Min-soo, who put up 19 points, or rather 16 points and 13 rebounds. Meanwhile, Korea University took down their second pro team, the KT Sonic Boom, by a huge margin, 74-53. Korea U is feeling super confident and will face either KGC or the Army team Sangmu in the Final Four on Wednesday. And off to track and field, the IAAF World Championships in Moscow came to a close, crowning many champions along the way, but none are as successful or as fast as Jamaica's Usain Bolt. The lightning Usain Bolt brought the thunder, winning the gold medal with his team in the 4x100-meter relay and becoming the most successful athlete in World Championships history with a total of 8 golds and 2 silvers. Meanwhile, South Korean runners set a Korean record in the 4x100 with a time of 39 seconds flat, although they didn't make it to the final heat. And now it's time to talk baseball. Well, no games are played today, so let's get right to the standings. The Samsung Lions remain on top despite winning only 2 of 6 games this week. The LG Twins are nipping at their heels. They're 0 games behind, but only down by win percentage. The Tucson Bears went on a tear and now sit just 2 games behind LG, while the Nexen Heroes fell deeper into 4th place. On to the bottom half of the standings, Lotte continues to stay in the mix at 5th place, while SK overtakes free-falling Kia at 6th place. NC went on a late season run, winning 4 matchups last week, while Hanwha remains at the bottom of the order. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Check back at midnight for the latest in the world of sports.
Let's now go over to our Kwon So-wha at the Weather Center for the latest forecast. Hi there.
Hi guys. Although we had a little bit of rain yesterday night through the morning, it didn't help cool things off that much.
I got a feeling that this week won't be much different from the previous ones.
Well, it is true that things won't change drastically, but there are a couple of factors that'll make the heat feel better.
Well, that sounds certainly promising. What are those factors?
Well, Sean, first off, the humidity levels have dropped a lot recently. Also, tropical nights are going to decrease bit by bit. Now, for a closer look at tomorrow's weather, we'll have pretty cloudy skies from time to time in most parts of the nation because we will be at the edge of the high pressure system located in northeast China. Now, in the East Coast regions, meanwhile, there is some rain expected to begin at night. And in inland regions of the southern provinces, there are also chances of showers in the latter half of the day due to instability in the atmosphere, which could be accompanied by thunder activity, so get ready for that. Now, temperature-wise, no big change from today. Seoul and Daegu will reach 33 degrees, Gwangju will be blistering hot at 36, and Busan reaches 31. Daejeon and Jeju Island both at 34 degrees. Dokdo and Gwangkeugang will be cooler at 27 and 21 degrees respectively. Now that's the forecast for now, but I'll see you back here after midnight.
Thank you, Soa. And that's our broadcast on this Monday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.